Daily Detroit is brought to you by the community. Support our work at patreon.com/dailydetroit.
From Detroit's University District, I'm Sven Gustafson.
And I'm Jer Stays. This is your Daily Detroit, recorded on January 7th, 2019. Welcome back from the weekend. After we tell you what's going on around town, we go in depth on news about Detroit's pro soccer team, Detroit City FC. Fletcher Sharpe joins us to talk about their new coach, Trevor James, and what it means for the team.
Let's dive right in, right after this word from our episode's sponsor. Daily Detroit is brought to you in part by Milo Digital. Milo Digital is a full-service digital marketing agency that engineers quality results through data and innovative strategies. Learn more at milodetroit.com.
To the relief of many Metro Detroit commuters, westbound I-696 is now back open. On Saturday, every entrance and exit ramp reopened except for Mound Road and Hoover. Those, we're told, will reopen this week. The project was delayed by more than a month by a labor dispute beginning in September, and then faced more hurdles when work restarted in the cold weather. You should expect plenty more construction on Michigan's roads. Although this project is complete, much of the state's infrastructure is in poor condition. However, battles are already brewing in Lansing over how and if to fund a comprehensive road repair fix statewide. The problem is vast and kind of hard to get your head around. For instance, there's about $1 billion of needed repairs in suburban Macomb County alone.
And speaking of I-696, our next story stays in Macomb County. The city of Warren says they're working to combat a rat problem along the freeway that the city says is caused by construction. The city says that since April, they've deployed 128 traps along the fence line of 696 at a cost of $125,000. A contractor is checking the traps every 2 weeks along the 6-mile stretch of freeway. Warren is also sending residents new 90-gallon trash cans to better contain residents' garbage. You know, Jared, I will just add that I live in Ferndale, fairly close to the Meyer, the Gateway development there on 8 Mile and Woodward. And when they were working on that, building that development, it displaced a huge wave of rats into the surrounding neighborhoods like Ferndale, and it was a huge problem, man.
I wonder if that's going to happen again when they finally get going over there, now that they've got new plans for that state fair. And if you remember a few months back, I went and talked to Mike Duggan over there, like in the state fairgrounds. And that project, land-wise, will be even bigger than what the Meyer was.
Yeah, as much as I'm excited to see what becomes of that old state fairground, because it is a prime piece of property, I do not look forward to more rats, including a couple that got into my house.
It's Saturday Night Live!
A Michigan-based act that's become a nationally known sensation, Greta Van Fleet, will be featured on Saturday Night Live on January 19th. That's according to the band's social media account. The band has a very retro sound, reminiscent of the classic rockers of yesteryear. They even earned the praise of Smashing Pumpkins frontman Billy Corgan, who said, quote, "The sky's the limit for where they can go." Greta Van Fleet hails from Frankenmuth, with all of its members born in the mid-90s. They've been nominated for 4 Grammys and played with the likes of Elton John.
Yeah, Joe, that very retro sound that you describe, it's Led Zeppelin Redux, basically. They sound like B-sides that never got released.
I enjoy them, I got to admit, but I also have to admit that when I was on Spotify, like when we're getting prepped for the story, I played them side by side, and I don't think that anyone around here could tell which one was which.
No, I mean, they're talented.
Very talented, have a lot of potential.
Yeah, but they need to bring something new to the game, because to me, it just sounds like they're just aping Led Zeppelin for a new generation. I mean, which, you know, I'm all for the newer generations getting hip to Led Zeppelin. You know, like my kids have no idea who Led Zeppelin are, and they probably don't care, but
I wonder, is that the magic? Is that the magic that it's that retro thing? I mean, I know lots of people love them. I mean, they got Grammy nominated.
Well, I know, but okay. Well, I don't want to get started on the Grammys, but there's nothing new under the sun, I feel like, when I listen to them. Governor Gretchen Whitmer made an appearance in Ferndale today. She came to Affirmations, an LGBTQ community center, to sign an executive order strengthening prohibitions on discrimination against gay, lesbian, and transgender state employees. The directive also covers all recipients of state contracts, grants, and loans. Whitmer's order goes further than a similar one signed late last year by former Republican Governor Rick Snyder. That one prohibited state contractors from discriminating against gay or transgender employees while granting an exception to religious organizations. Whitmer's order has no exemptions. The governor, in a statement, says the order will help make Michigan a model of equal opportunity and build a more welcoming and inclusive state.
We've got some food and drink news to round up since we last did so before the holidays. And if you're looking for links for more, we'll have them in the show notes. The brick-and-mortar version of popular vegan food truck Shimmy Shack is eyeing a late January opening in Plymouth Township after receiving its certificate of occupancy from the city, where it will echo the food truck's retro 1950s aesthetic and diner menu.
The Royal Oak nightclub Luna has closed its doors for good after 19 years in business. In a Facebook post dated January 3rd, the owners say they've officially closed with an extremely heavy heart.
Sven, my early 20s had far too many bad decisions there, though the VW Beetle on the roof was really cool. I personally have no idea how that place lasted 19 years.
I had never even heard of it until today.
Right here in the University District of Detroit, there's a new coffee shop. The Bigby we had previously reported was coming to 18685 Livernois is now open. The same folks own it as the location in Ferndale at Livernois and 9 Mile. If you've been to a Bigby before, well, you know what's in this store. And I'll note the area is seeing much more investment as of late. There's been a set of small businesses that have opened up on the street between 7 and 8 Mile, but also a student housing and retail construction project at the corner of 7 and Livernois. Much of the housing stock in Bagley, the University District, and nearby Sherwood Forest has seen upticks in value. Talking to various utility crews around the neighborhood, and we'll admit this is recorded right here in the University District, I've been told multiple times upgrades have had to be made to handle the increased population density. And in the June of this year, the PGA will return to Michigan at the Detroit Golf Club for the Rocket Mortgage Classic. That's about a half a mile away from this new coffee shop. But there's one oddity I gotta explore, Sven.
What's that?
I saw a store around the corner dedicated just to Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. Like a whole storefront next to the Coney. So like we can do Conies and crypto?
Sounds weird. In Birmingham, the beloved Hunter House Hamburger Diner could be demolished to make way for a 5-story mixed-use development. Hometown Life reports that the longtime restaurant would be offered a space in the new building, but the owners don't support the plan. The proposal is still tied up with the city's planning commission.
And here's one we don't want you to miss. Japanese pub Katsu Detroit opened just before the end of the year on Trumbull Avenue in Woodbridge. Eater Detroit says it sits between 40 and 50 people, with a section devoted to tatami-style seating with the cushions instead of chairs, and a menu including char-grilled meats, noodles, and daily specials. We'll put a link in the show notes, and I'll also add Nick Drinks. Nick Britsky also had a lot of good things to say about that place on social media, so I'm looking forward to checking this one out.
For sure. Detroit City FC on Friday announced it has hired a new head coach. Trevor James has an impressive pedigree, having played professionally in England's top flight and having worked as a talent scout for big European clubs, including Barcelona, and as an assistant coach for MLS teams, including the Los Angeles Galaxy. Joining us to talk about that is Daily Detroit soccer correspondent Fletcher Sharpe. Fletcher, what do you make of this hire? How's it going over with the DCFC fan base and especially those rabid Northern Guard supporters group?
Towards Trevor James, people seem pretty happy. While everyone loved Ben because of his kind of no-nonsense style of interviews, his pretty direct way in coaching.
Ben Pierman, who was the outgoing coach and the head coach at Michigan State University until just recently.
Trevor James is the same way, except he's done it on a bigger level. He recently just came from Indy 11 FC, which is in the USL. He helped transition them from the NASL, which is now defunct, the North American Soccer League, to the USL, which is now, I guess, USL Pro, or now known as the Championship in the US, the second division. And Indy 11 used to be pretty bad. They're not the best team to write home about now, but he helped transition them from a kind of poor team to a pretty decent team. So if he can do that with a team that was full of a lot of rejects from other teams and kind of older players, he should be able to do that easily with Detroit City FC. I personally think it's a great pick. Usually when you take coaches, you look at all the teams in the NPSL and the teams in the NPSL Pro, if you want to go that route as well, who have repeated success. It's because they have coaches who have professional pedigree, coaches who've dealt with players who actually were stars and might have been divas, we're not sure, and they can help manage that style. And people love Ben's no-nonsense, straightforward kind of personality. Trevor's the exact same way. He's very straightforward. He's very honest. If he does not like something, you will definitely know. If he likes something, you will definitely know.
So City will be one of 11 teams joining the NPSL Pro, which I think I have that name right, of that league, right?
Yeah, NPSL Pro.
They're hiring a new coach to go into their kind of inaugural, partial season, I guess, for the partial season of the league. And they're going to have to build a whole new pro roster of professional paid players. Is City unique in that way among the 11 teams, or is that kind of par for course for all the teams joining this league?
It's pretty much par for course, save for really the Miami teams and the New York Cosmos, which were all former NASL teams. They all were made up of professional players. And when they came to the NPSL, they added a few more players to kind of round out their season, because I know a few people left to go play for the MLS or other USL teams. But for the most part, they're still a pretty professional team, which is why it wasn't really surprising to see them kind of dominate people, because they had players that were being paid money the year prior and probably were being paid money that year. Detroit's kind of unique in the sense that they will have a huge crowd who will have new players. Most of these teams, as you mentioned, Northern Guard, most of these teams don't have a rabid fan base like that. I know New York Cosmos comes close, but then again, they also were a professional team, so you kind of expect people to kind of follow. Plus, they're rehashing the old New York Cosmos back from when they were super famous, bringing over all the European players to play.
And Pele, yeah.
But yeah, no, they will have – the Detroit City fans will have some new players. New in the sense they weren't Detroit City players, but kind of maybe old in the fact they might have seen this guy on television, might have seen whoever playing for them to cheer for. And I think it's kind of exciting. I've been saying for the past few years, if Detroit City FC wants to go pro, they have a lot of players that are fan favorites that would not be professional players. And it might be painful to admit that because people are fan favorites, but sometimes your favorite player, you have to realize, might not be the best forward, might not be the best midfielder, might be the best defender, but he's someone you want to keep around the club. And you have to move on from that. And I feel like Detroit City FC is finally taking the step to realize, hey, we want to be pro. We have 6 or 7 players that actually might really be good on this pro roster. And we have some people that might have to fill out the roster, might have to, be the quote, veteran wisdom off the bench, unquote. We have some people that might, have to go play for other NPSL teams.
The upcoming season, as I mentioned, is going to be a little bit of a hybrid, it sounds like. They're going to have regular NPSL play starting in May, but then in August they will transition to the NPSL, I think it's called the Champions Cup. How's that going to work for putting together their roster and everything, or does that sort of remain to be seen?
I'm fairly certain, because there are a lot of half-professional teams, like Milwaukee Torrent, who probably for me the most surprising team to join the NPSL Champions Cup, the NPSL Pro Division, because honestly they're not good, but they are a professional team. They play professional indoor as a Milwaukee Torrent, so they bring a lot of those players who play for the Torrent and the Wave over to play for them outdoors as well. They have a few college players. But when it gets towards professional time, the college players go, and the professional players stay and play where they need to play. So I feel like with Detroit City FC, they'll still be able to attract some college talent. Maybe not all the college talent they had before, but they'll still be able to get some college players to come play. And when it comes time for those players to leave, they'll still have professional players there. I know Detroit City's hamstring issue the past few years has been they've had some really great, like the year that they got to the semifinals 2 years ago, and lost to Midland Odessa. The problem they had was a lot of their really great players, really, really great players that they were counting on for the season had to go back to school. So as a result, they had some players filling in who stepped up and were retained for the next year, but had to go back Part of the problem they had was Midland Odessa's players were from smaller colleges. Smaller colleges don't have to send their players back immediately. Don't have to pull their players back immediately. Bigger schools like Michigan, Michigan State, etc., can say, "Hey, we want our kid back now. We don't get our kid back, scholarship issue." Whereas you have like Southwest Texas A&M State College of Agriculture or whatever, they can say, "Yeah, we're not going to give you your kid back now. He has 2 more games to play. Your kid will be back when he comes back," and they just have to say, "Okay." So, yeah, I'm fairly certain they're going to have probably some still fan favorites who play in college, but they're probably also going to have a few people who, like I know last year, they brought back Michigan soccer hero Josh Gatt, who went to Catholic Central High School. They brought him back for a game, and they're going to try him out a bit more. Then he got a professional contract. So I know if he's still kicking the ball around, looking to play somewhere, he has a pro place in Michigan to come back to. That's the thing. The really most exciting part for me is there are a lot of really great Michigan-born players who might be playing in smaller divisions in other countries, who might be trying to get a shot somewhere. I know the Midwest Combine just happened. The comes to a stadium in Michigan over December. They come and they compete for 2 to 3 days. Put up some great numbers, and a lot of really great kids come from that combine to go professionally, whether it's in the U.S., whether it's in Europe. Some of them play in the NPSL for a year, then they springboard somewhere else. So I'm certain Detroit. Normally Detroit City has 1 scout. I know this year they had like 3. Fairly certain, probably because they're trying to look for some kids to maybe sign, whether it's just for the NPSL season, whether it's for the NPSL pro season included. We're not exactly sure, but I'm excited to see some new names on the roster, as well as some familiar names, because you can't just overhaul entirely. That's not how you go forward.
Well, it should be pretty interesting to watch things develop, and it's going to be a new era when the season kicks off in May. We'll definitely have you on before then to talk about it more. That's Fletcher Sharpe, Daily Detroit's soccer correspondent. Thanks so much, Fletcher.
And before we go, we wanted to point out a neat piece in Curb Detroit. The story by Robin Runyon, who is leaving her post as editor of the real estate publication, talks about a Detroit woman who found her childhood home in a land bank auction and is now working to rehab it. We'll have a link in the show notes.
That's it for your Daily Detroit. If you really like what we're doing, we have a monthly membership program with some cool gifts at patreon.com/dailydetroit. We'll link to it in the show notes. I'm Sven Gustafson.
And I'm Jer Stays. Take care of each other, and we'll see you around Detroit.
You're listening to the Podcast Detroit Network. Visit www.podcastdetroit.com for more information.